I'm here.
All right, good.
Oh, I'll mute again then.
Here we go then. It is early spring 2013. And you, Aaron, you are in Dublin on a school assignment, or rather you have a school assignment to be delivered in written form to your teacher following the winter break.
Yep.
And right now you are in fact standing at the gates of St. Stephen's Green in Dublin city centre, looking up at the archway leading into the green. From behind you, as you look up at the arch, you have the short pedestrian street of Grafton Street, where tourists and an Irishman are happily moving back and forth on their way home from shopping or restaurants or whatever the hell it is ordinary plebs are doing this time of year and day. But anyway, you are standing at the Green because the Green was an extremely important area during the Easter Rising, which is what your school assignment is all about.
I might be scheduled to meet a certain someone in here at around now-ish.
Yeah, I would imagine that you're probably scheduled to meet with someone who is well versed in local history and can give you a few hints and teasers, so to say.
Yeah. Do you know who that is, or should I tell you?
You go ahead and tell me.
Okay. I guess that would be a Seamus, I guess not professor, a Mr. Seamus O'Connor.
Yes.
Who's a master of history
yes.
with specialization in the modern movement of the modern Irish history and the break from the United Kingdom.
Yes, certainly. That would be. He would be. Actually, he would not have to go very far. He's from Trinity College, which is literally right down the other end of the about 800 meters long Grafton Street, maybe a kilometer long. So he doesn't have very far to go. He is, however, running late.
I think we see. I think this has Aaron very. It has him worked up a bit that the person's running late, because he's out here without a chaperone, and he's generally feeling a bit vulnerable, and he's thinking he's worried about what's going to happen if this doesn't work out, if he's wasting his time on this trip and the guy is a no-show.
Yes.
So I think what we see is a well-dressed young man at about 15 years old. He's Caucasian. His skin is on the dark side of fair. Yes. He has short cropped, like just well and properly trimmed black hair, and very, very striking green eyes.
All right.
He's standing with a computer bag over his shoulder, and I think he's been passing his time looking to his watch and then catching his reflection in something reflective, and quickly just controlling, apparently dealing with a ventilation issue and setting his hair and making sure he's looking proper and trying to control a shake of the hand.
All right. Well, you have waited there for, I would imagine, about 10 minutes longer than 10 minutes past the due time of when Mr. Seamus was supposed to be there, and Mr. Seamus still hasn't turned up. Now, you had been warned in advance of coming here that the Irish are notoriously bad at keeping time, and they really are. Trust me, gods, I love them to bits, but if you make a deal with them to meet up with them at 8 o'clock, they will be there at half 8, if you're really lucky, more like 9.
Yeah, I
I
think he can't. He's having a hard time adjusting to that idea.
Yeah. Nonetheless, Mr. Seamus doesn't turn up. Well, who does, in fact, turn up is a... who does turn up instead is another man who doesn't fit the description. This guy is tall, muscular. He's got dirty blonde hair, a short beard. He is not dressed like you would expect a college professor to be, certainly. He's wearing jeans, good shoes, but jeans, and a T-shirt. And it's a sleeveless T-shirt, which is, quite frankly, bloody cold this time of year, especially since it's a chilly day, at least by Dublin standards. And he's got a cigarette in the corner of his mouth, and he's looking pretty content with himself, but as he spots you, he very clearly heads towards you.
I think Aaron's response is he's not gonna leave because he has an appointment here. Mm-hmm. I think he sort of just backs up closer to the archway, mm-hmm. and looks left and right and makes sure that there's someone around him as this strange person approaches.
Yes. Well, there are hundreds of people around. This is daytime hours, and this is the most popular park in Dublin. There are many, many, many people around, so don't worry. But this guy walks straight up to you and grins a wide smile, which shows you that he's lacking 2 teeth on the right side of his mouth, one in his upper and one in his lower jaw. And no, they're not right up and, not opposite from each other, so clearly somebody punched him twice. He grins and goes, "Hello there, kid. I think you might be waiting for, what's his face? Seamus, isn't that it?"
Can I help you, sir?
Aye, you probably can. My name is Barden McClellan. I'm here to what's it called? Yeah. Oh yeah, show you around. That's it. Show you around. Seamus can't make it. Sorry.
I'm sorry. He's not at all. He doesn't feel comfortable with the person's look. So he's. I'm sorry. I was supposed to meet Mr. O'Connor.
Well, you can call him. He's not going to be able to make it. He sent me in his stead.
Okay. Excuse me. I think I will call him.
Go right ahead. By the way, you can smell his breath at this distance. It smells very strongly of whiskey.
Yeah, I'm definitely calling him. Backing 3 steps away from the guy, like half turning my side to him, as if I mean to whisper into the phone.
Well, you call Seamus, and
I use my Android whatever 2003.
Yes, and you get through to this old geezer who picks up the... Hello!
Excuse me, Mr. O'Connor?
Yes, that would be me.
Yes, hello. This is Aaron Blackwell. From
yes.
St. Vincent's.
Yes. I'm terribly sorry, young man. However, I'm going to be unable to make the appointment. I did send one of my research assistants instead. His name is Barden McClellan. He should be a fine fellow.
Is this? And he leans into the phone and whispers, Does Mr. McClellan look like? And he stifles the word bum. And he sort of said, does Mr. McClellan look like a layman?
He does look a little disheveled, yes, but he's a first-rate young man. I can tell you, certainly, he's a very good man.
Okay, very sorry for bothering you, sir.
Oh, it is quite all right. It is quite all right. I do hope that he can answer all of your questions, and if he can't, then feel free to... you might be able to drop by Trinity College and see me in, say, 2 days' time.
It will 2 days' time be within the time frame I'm still in Dublin?
That would be the day you're supposed to go back home. Early in the morning. I think
Aaron, he wants to object, but he doesn't. I think it's kind of like this moment of hesitation where he wants to tell the professor or the lecturer or whatever he is, that you know, really he would like to talk to him.
Yes.
You know, because it's important that the assignment, that the paper is perfect.
Yes.
But he doesn't. Instead, he elects to just say, "Well, thank you, Mr. O'Connor. Have a nice day." And then
you as well. And then he hangs up out of nowhere.
I was gonna say, I think he hangs up as he says,
yes.
Have a nice day, and just looks to the person.
Yes. Barton looks back at you with a raised eyebrow and smiles. So, did he confirm?
Yes, I'm very sorry, sir. I meant no disrespect. Mr. O'Connor said that you are his research assistant.
That's correct.
Well, I guess he lightens up a little bit at this. And he's like, well, what have you got planned, mister?
Well, I had planned to start by showing you around the green. You see...
I assume this is something like we start walking and talking, perhaps?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And he says, you see, my great-granddad, his name was Barton as well, incidentally. He fought in the Easter Rising, and he was actually here in the green. So I can show you. I can show you all the sites around here, and I can take you around Dublin, and we can take a look at all of them. And it's a fairly long walk. I hope you're up for it.
Yes, I'm. The longer the better.
Excellent.
He reaches into the front pocket of his laptop
briefcase.
Yes. Briefcase. Yeah. Thank you. And produces a notepad and a pen.
Yes.
You know, for walking and taking notes.
Yes. And to make a long story fairly short, Mr. McClellan does take you around St. Stephen's Green. He does point out specific places. He's even brought a camera you can borrow. And he does show you specific places where a trench had been dug, or this is where this or that rebel was shot. And he points out, quite importantly, at one point where he's standing literally on top of where a trench would have been, and then he holds out an arm and points it towards one of the corners of St. Stephen's Green, and goes on to explain that during the Easter Rising in 1916 there was a building outside the fence, which isn't there anymore, but it was a very tall building. In fact, at the time, it was the tallest in Dublin. And the rebels didn't actually think that it was a good idea to occupy this hotel as it was. So the British sent a sniper up on top of the of that hotel, and that git started shooting people in the trench like they were, he was doing target practice. So basically, what he's explaining to you is how bloody a place the Green was during the Rising, and he actually knows a lot of different details.
Is the difference between being lectured about something and then being told by someone who can't keep his arms down?
Exactly. Yeah. This guy lives it as he tells it to you. This guy tells history much the same way I do.
I think Aaron, when he looks back, and I don't know how that influences what he does, but Aaron is not particularly interested in the Easter Rising, but he's absorbing it with like the appetite and the intent of a person whose life is riding on the information.
Yes.
So, like, just writing everything down, and is very rarely asking questions, but when he is, it's almost never like, he's saying something that's perhaps interesting and would merit like a question about, oh, then what happened with Mr. Whatever? And instead it's more like, oh, how did that perhaps affect the social political issues?
Yes.
And that sort of boring line of questions that would make a good paper.
So, but he still answers them, and he's actually he does have the information. But he takes you around Dublin, not just the Green. He takes you around Dublin, and he shows you several of the other places where fighting went on. Several of the buildings that were occupied by the rebels no longer exist. He does take you to the so-called GPO, or the General Post Office, which was the headquarters for the Rising, for the rebels during the Easter Rising. And he takes you into the building and shows you that they have not actually patched over all the bullet holes. And on the outside, on the facade, he shows you that there's an impact crater from a British piece of field artillery that nobody ever repaired, because it's kind of become a landmark that this damage to the post office is still visible even all these years later. And obviously he makes quite a big deal out of the fact that it's only 3 years, and then it's going to be the centenary for the Easter Rising, and he's clearly quite proud of the story, and he's very Irish, so he's got as much reason to be as every other Irishman, but he's clearly proud of it, and he's proud of his great grandfather's participation in this thing. By the end of the tour, he then says, well, there's this one place I can take you, and we can go there now, or I can, and you can take the tour, and that's shite, quite frankly. It's bollocks. It's Kilmainham Jail, where they send all the rebels that were caught, the ones that weren't shot, and the ringleaders were sent there, and then they were executed in the courtyard. But so we can go there now, and you can take the tour, which is, as I said, it's shite, or I can meet you there tonight at 9:30. Don't worry, I'll be there at 9:30. I won't be there at 10 or 10:30. I'll be there on time. I know how to keep time, and then I'll show you something that you won't see every day.
Aaron feels distinctly uncomfortable at the phrasing, and I think what he does is what time did you say?
9:30.
9:30. He has been very good at telling about the Easter Rising.
He has been extremely good at it.
I think Aaron, he's kind of contending with himself, and he's quickly like looking over his notes, and he then decides that the best thing to do would be to go there and take the tour after bidding this gentleman goodbye, and then meeting him there at 9.
All right.
Just in case that would be something, something that would take the paper over the top.
Oh yeah. So basically, you go to Kilmainham Jail is easy to get to because there are several bus lines going there, including several of the tourist buses, and so
I, of course, say a pleasant goodbye to the person, of course, and agree that 9:30.
Yep, 9:30. And he then goes. He bids you a pleasant afternoon, and then he walks off whistling. He can actually. He more than knows how to carry a tune. And he skips along the road with a sort of almost like a playful kind of attitude, and he goes around a corner, and then that's pretty much it. But where he has left you is actually outside the General Post Office, and it's literally 100 feet from there to where one of these tourist buses park. So you can easily get to Kilmainham if you want to go there and see it.
I think he goes there after grabbing a quick bite to eat from somewhere, and then, like off a stand, something he can walk and eat at the same time. Yep. And then he goes and takes the bus, and not knowing it, I think his right foot is tapping the tune that the guy whistled.
Yeah. Well, you get to Kilmainham, which is a foreboding place, to put it mildly. It is an absolutely horrifically sinister building. But you do take the tour, which is not as bad as he said, but it is geared towards giving tourists a lot of information in a relatively short span of time. And it ends up in the courtyard where all the rebels were executed. There are 2 crosses. There's a big Irish tricolour on a flagpole, which is always on half-mast. There are 2 crosses. One is very large at one end of the the courtyard. This is where all the rebels that were executed were shot, except for one, and that's a much smaller cross on the other end of the courtyard, where you are told that a man named James Connolly who was mortally wounded and would, by all accounts, have died within 24 to 48 hours from a bullet wound that had gotten infected. But he was propped up on a chair, tied to it. He was blindfolded despite literally being delirious from the infection in his wound. He wasn't even conscious of what was going on around him at the time. And then he was summarily shot. He wasn't able to stand up for his own execution. And this clearly gets a growl out of several of the Irishmen who are in this, people who aren't native to Dublin, but who are Irishmen who are taking the tour for the first time, and quite a few of them react very badly to this. Several of the other tourists in the tour also look a little horrified at the idea of shooting a dying man.
I think Aaron would have been brought up. It wouldn't have been like a subject of the household, nationalism in general. I don't think his dad was that worried about it. More that when something was brought up, it was never like, oh, the Irish are so cool. It was like, goddamn Irishmen.
Yes.
Like that sort of stuff whenever it was. And as such, like, not that it was a topic, but I think he feels like by virtue of being who he is like an English guy. Aaron is an English kid. And the English were the good guys, and the Irish were like terror bombers and drunk people.
Yes.
And when this reaction he is kind of horrified at the prospect, from like a general notion that this kid is, with a vivid imagination, is imagining these things. But when the very Irish groan of dislike is heard in the crowd, I think he feels very small. Like, he's almost kind of worried that these people will sense that he's British and just attack him.
Yes. Well, it's it is what it is anyway. And as the tour is finished, you have a couple of Japanese people there with plentiful cameras taking pictures, and you have people from Ireland who there are a couple of old people who literally go to either one of the crosses and then to the other one later on and kneel down and pray, which is not an unusual thing for the Irish to do in this place. It is clearly, and this is not just from how they react, it's also something you can hear from the almost reverential voice of the tour guide. This place is considered holy ground. The people who died here sanctified it.
That makes a lot of sense. It was also very recent. So.
It was, and it was in many ways where the idea of an independent Ireland was born. So, after the tour is over, you have about 4 hours until you're supposed to meet up with Mr. Barden McClellan again.
Yeah, I think the first thing he does is he when people disperse, he quickly clears his throat and apologizes to the tour guide and asks, I assume, her?
Yes.
And asks her, I'm sorry, miss, I'm doing a paper on the Easter Rising. Would I be allowed to? Am I allowed to film in here?
Well, there are certain parts of the jail that you're not allowed to film in. She informs you, but that if you want to film around the courtyard, for example, that is indeed allowed. The general cell block is also a place where it is allowed to film.
Thank you. And what he'll then do is he will wait for I'm assuming she's starting the next tour.
Yes.
What he'll do is he will actually just stand around, and then when they come back out and she tells the story again, he takes out his phone and he films her telling that story, and he hopes to get like a similar reaction out, that the crowd will react in a similar way.
They do.
Then that is the object of filming that, is to make that a part of it, or in some way either transcribe it or involve it on the flash drive with the paper.
Yeah, simply to show that it's still a raw thing for the Irish.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no problem. Well, after the next tour is over, you have about 3 hours left. So. Yeah,
I think he jumps on the tourist bus again and just goes somewhere that's not here for a little while.
Yep.
Then sits down at a cafe, gets out his laptop and writes writes the notes that he's taken in a more complete form, so he doesn't forget.
Yes. No problem. And then around the right time, you head back out to Kilmainham, I guess.
Yeah, he does, but I think he's hesitant at first, simply because it's like Mr. Barton was actually really nice, and he was nice for a drunken and unpleasant smelling person.
Yes.
And what he said was probably sounded like it would make the framework for a very good paper. But there's also the little notion of, meet me there at 9:30, I'll show you something interesting. It's like, do I actually go there? And he decides that he will, because why not?
Yes.
I have a phone. I can call the police, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point.
It's a jail. Surely there must be guards at a prison, right?
Well, it's no longer in use, but yes. You head back out there.
Yep.
All right. Well, it's now dark. It's, as I said, it's early spring, so it's by the time you get there at 9:30, it's the sun is going down. And of course, the jail is closed. There are residential buildings nearby, but the jail itself is actually located in a place where you right opposite from it. There's an office building, but that's all. And actually, the place looks pretty deserted when you get back out there, especially for a place that is so important to the Irish. That it seems very quiet and deserted when you get there.
How well in advance am I there? I want to say
probably about 10-15 minutes.
Okay.
So like 9:15.
All right. Yeah, I think he starts pacing, and the feeling of the place and it being abandoned is kind of weird to him.
Yes.
I only think he paces for about 1 or 2 minutes before he actually takes out his phone and calls his house.
Yes. Well, you call, and I would imagine the butler picks it up.
Yeah. I guess so.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
The Blackwell residence.
Yeah, what's the butler called? God, he has to be called one of the butler names, doesn't he?
Nah, Rogers.
Okay. Mr. Rogers?
Oh, young sir, I do hope your excursion to Dublin is less barbaric than anticipated.
Well, yeah, everyone's kind of nice, but is Mom and Dad home?
No, I am sorry. They are at the opera tonight, young sir, but I can leave a message for them if that should be necessary.
He checks his watch and then decides that it's not going to matter. Then he looks left, he looks right, and he's... Rogers?
Yes?
How dangerous are the Irish?
I suppose that depends on how much Guinness and whiskey you put into them first, young sir.
That doesn't settle him in any way. It's like the guy smelled like a brewery. Oh god.
Well, yeah, or a distillery in this case. I would say that most Irishmen today are a bunch of reasonably amiable people.
All right, well, thanks, I guess. Say hi to Mom and Dad for me.
I shall do most certainly, sir. Is there anything else I can be of assistance with?
No, Rogers, thanks.
You are most welcome.
He hangs
Have
up.
a pleasant evening. And he hangs up, yeah. Okay. And, yes.
He waits there feeling uncomfortable.
Yes. About another 5 minutes later, Barden arrives. He's not alone. He's got a woman with him. She looks a little better dressed, just slightly.
Aaron, stands up straight as he approaches and kind of shifts his gaze between them.
Yes. And, well, the woman in question has a distinctly Southern European look to her. She is outrageously beautiful. Insanely beautiful. Not to put too fine a point on it, but she's got 5 dots of appearance.
I don't think he's actually shifting his gaze then.
No, she's kind of hard to tear your eyes away from.
Impolitely staring, not meaning anything.
Yes. And she takes, she smiles at you, which is a sort of a radiant kind of thing. And Barden gives you a big wide grin and looks around and says, all right, we're alone, like I'd hoped. That's excellent. Anyway, Francesca, this is the young buck I told you about. And the woman in question nods politely at you. And
Miss?
I am pleased to meet you. I am told that you would like to see the inside of Kilmainham Jail at this time of the evening. I think Barden has told you that there is something interesting to see in there.
He quickly shifts his gaze to Barden and he's like...
Barden nods enthusiastically from behind where she's standing.
He has this look of, is that what I've agreed to? Okay, good. He looks back at her and he feels he's like sort of flustered because I think there is some. She's very pretty. She's a very very pretty lady.
Yes. She
is. But he then says yes. I would like that. I think that's why we're here.
She takes one look at you, one really hard look at you, good long one. Then she looks at Barden and nods to him and says, "See, he is one of us. You are correct." Barden whips out a small mirror and grins as just like a hand mirror, which he holds out for her to take. She does. He then walks towards you, pats you gently on the shoulder, and then he holds on to your shoulder. He's got a very firm grip. Then he holds his other hand out towards her. She takes it, looks into the mirror, and everything becomes very strange very quickly. The next thing you remember, the next thing you realize, is you waking up. It is midnight or later. It's at least, now it's no longer evening. It is very, very dark. You can't see the city lights, so you are clearly not inside Dublin city limits anymore. And you feel physically very, very strange. Very, very odd. And you can see some of your clothes ripped to shreds on the ground in front of you. Everything smells very odd. Everything smells very, very strange indeed.
I think there's a brief moment of just looking left and right and just like, where am I? And then panic takes immediate hold.
At this time, you seem to realize that there's something wrong with your vision as well. You see things in black and white, and you are much closer to the ground than you normally would be.
I definitely panic. I want to touch my eyes, just like close them and rub them and open them again.
Yes, and as you try to do so, you tumble sideways because paws can't be used to rub eyes.
fall sideways, looks all over the place, trying to understand where I am. Am I inside anywhere? Am I? If not, am I? Where? What's around me?
Well, the thing is that as you fall over sideways, you kind of stick your paws into the air and you can see them. You've got dog's feet. Or something.
Aaron yells.
Ow!
And then he tries to run away from his feet.
Yeah. And that's kind of sad, actually, but unfortunately your feet follow.
He keeps running,
You're also
panicking and
that
hyperventilating.
you're running insanely fast.
I think that's not actually on his mind. I just think he's legging it in any direction, and I think he's breathing very fast. He doesn't know what's going on. He's scared shitless.
Yes. You panic all over again. The next thing you realize, it is even later in the night. It's a full moon overhead, and you wake up. There is a lot of blood all around you. A lot.
I want to back away from it.
You bump into a tree.
I turn around and try and... I want to get away from the blood.
Yes. Well,
morbid curiosity takes over. Just a split second. Where is the blood from?
The blood is, as it turns out, from a person lying on the ground nearby. Or should I say an ex-person. Nobody is going to live very long with one arm yanked out of its socket.
Again, Aaron starts hyperventilating. He backs away several steps, and then he wants to run. Yeah.
You hear a voice behind you.
Yeah.
Going, and you recognize it immediately.
Yeah.
Damn, kid. That's a fine first kill. Lots of us don't kill our first Fomori until, I don't know, a year, 2 has passed. Wasn't very strong, but for someone who's just found out, that's a fine first kill.
I turn around and look at Barton.
Yes, you look into the face of a classic werewolf. He's about 9.5 feet tall, which means that you still have to look up at him just a little bit, but not much. He is all muscles. He's all claws, fur, and yellow eyes, and fangs. Lots and lots of fangs. He grins at you, the kind of a wolfish look, and says, I wouldn't try anything, kid. I'm good at this. I've done it for years. You haven't. Just relax. You're one of us, just like Francesca said.
I think there is a one split second where his immediate reaction is to just lash out at this werewolf.
Yes.
Because there is nowhere to run, and he has the willpower to actually default to attacking.
Yes.
But instead, there's this brief moment where his heart skips a beat, and he remembers, and we probably see this as black and white flashbacks in a very posh-looking, well-lit room with like a shadowy authoritarian figure with ill-defined features. We can't really see what he looks like, looking down at a person that's obviously a younger Aaron, and telling him and saying things to him that no parent should say to a child, and Aaron's looking confused. We don't really understand what it is, but it's obvious like the conversation is confusing to him, but he's also looking like this is something you accept what your father tells you, and you're not. And this one of us thing seems to resonate with whatever is being said that the audience can't hear. And he stops his instinct when he witnesses Wolf Barton.
Yes.
And instead he cowers in front of him and like pulls back, and he feels his feet standing in the blood, and stops pulling back, caught between like the mess behind him and Barton. He just says, "What? I don't understand. What is this?"
Which comes out as a lot of growling and snuffling and arr, 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 because you don't know how to speak through the muscle of a wolf yet. But
it probably comes out pathetically.
It does, kind of. Barton grins wolfishly again, looks sideways, and another one approaches. Another creature, looking not too unlike him, approaches. Francesca, he says, "You were absolutely right. I think we found his pub name." And she looks at you and then looks back at Barton, and Barton points to the ground where you're standing in the blood. And he smiles a wide, very predatory kind of smile and says, "I think," he says, "you're going to be stands in blood. At least until your training is done. Your training and your rite of passage."
I don't understand. What is this?
This is your new life, kid.
I'm gonna wake up.
Yes, and nothing will have changed. This is who you are. Your father knew. That's why he let you come to Dublin.
There is I think there is like a tangible expression of panic, like the wild panic that would be natural here, and it's contained in a shell of just the words your father sent you here. And he wants to lash out and just do something, like give in to some form of instinct and run away from these monsters.
Yes.
But the realization from we saw in the flashback, and just that your father sent you here for that reason, it's like this cold shell locking his natural instincts into a small tight point. Mm-hmm. And he just stands instead, looking horrified. And I think that would be a point to end the scene.
Yes, in fact, this is where we end the session.